Alright, hello and welcome everybody. We're back. I'm sorry for the delay. Hopefully the cat is feeling much better now. So last time we finished up the terrains for Shimmerpool. We put down these forest terrains, but we disabled the trees from spawning on them, because we're going to place the trees as objects on this forest terrain. This will give us a little bit more control over which trees appear where. This is, of course, the map Shimmerpool. We're building the map to support multiple biomes. Before it was actually called Karga, and it was just based on desert. So we've essentially generalized everything, and we'll put the objects in, and if we're lucky, after the objects are in place, we can actually go through and just change the definitions so that the map will support multiple biomes. It should be pretty cool. This is the particular biome that we have now is a kind of like a light winter desert biome. So all the biomes they'll be slightly different, but they'll be mostly the same in form. So let's get these trees figured out first, because an Age of Empires map without trees is chaos. And we can't allow that. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so we do have Shimmerpool up. And, oh, that's right. So last time, the reason that we did not proceed with object generation last time was because we had problems. We couldn't seem to get the objects to spawn properly because GNU Octave would not read our spreadsheet. So I went in and I reinstalled the I/O package for GNU Octave, and it solved the problem. So now we can read the spreadsheet as intended. Yeah, I had all of these other functions up, and this number 2 call function was not defined. So I guess it must have been added somewhere, and we just didn't have this updated. So it should be fine now. So we'll close the rest of this. Close objects autoscribe B9. And we'll just work off of Shimmerpool here. It looks like we're already in the correct directory here. So all we should have to do is just run this object generation line, and it'll execute the program. So let's see what we have initially here. So it looks like we just have some on-grid placeholders, but they're defined as 600. And we did run that as a test. We go into the actual script file. See that we do have on-grid here. It's placing on-grid, but I think we're also defining on-grid as something else. And most importantly, we're setting its storage value equal to 0. So let's comment these out and see if we can get those flag A's to appear now. These flag A's are going to be sort of our focal point. They're going to be the point at which all other things reference. And yes, here they are. Actually not the cleanest, are they? Well, that's alright. That's the reason that they're not the cleanest is because they've got this yeah, that's true actually. Let's see what terrain they're targeting, because it doesn't really look like they're targeting any particular terrain, but I could be mistaken about that. Let's see. I mean, I know that they're targeting something. They're targeting the outer cap terrain. So I guess in theory, every map should always have this outer cap terrain. So, whatever. We'll just keep going, and we'll add some complexity here as we see fit. So I think the first thing that we want to do is, in order to get it so that these desert maps sometimes have a lower density of trees, we're going to have to define several different types of trees, and then in the case of the desert map, half of those trees will actually just be invisible placeholders. So the same objects are spawning, but in particular desert variations, some of those objects are essentially not there because they are invisible and uninteractable. So we're going to have a larger concentration of pine trees closer to the center here, and as we move out, it's essentially going to get thicker and thicker into bushes here. So let's see what we can do with that. We basically want to continue along here. Getting the trees set up right is definitely the most important thing. So we're going to have, I guess we're just going to have tree 1, tree 2. That's what we're going to call them for now. And we don't define them here because they're going to be defined in the conditional. These are going to be neutral Gaia, and we can make these convertible. That's absolutely fine. However, yeah, this is fine. So we'll copy this and we'll paste this down here. We're not going to be placing them on outer cap terrain. We're going to allow them to be convertible because trees by default are unconvertible anyway. You can't make them convertible. So if we change this to convertible, then it's just one fewer command that we have to worry about. So group quantity, this is good. We will control these. We want no object quantity here. So we will put these on our forest terrain, whatever that is, but we'll basically control the amount of them with temp min distance group placement. So let's see. Let's come up here. And what have we got for terrains? We've got, I think we've got some kind of general disallowing traditional tree spawn on forest. Make it spawn on palm desert instead. Yes. So we've got outland forest here. Is that really? Oh no, okay. I see. So this is just a general term. But where's our forest? Here we go. Oasis forest. So we're going to have these spawn on Oasis forest. So they will spawn on Oasis forest, and they are going to be snow pine trees, both of them. Because I think we're going to do this so that the deserts essentially maybe have half as much, or some of the deserts have half as much. It just depends. We're going to make them both snow pine trees for now so we can see, but one of these critically is going to be an invisible placeholder later. So let's come in here and let's define the different trees. Yeah, this is really, making these different biomes are really just all about putting the definitions in the random statements, or having the random statements influence what you define stuff as. So we have, what was it, tree 1? Because we spelled the whole thing out. I think we could technically have an _1 here and it would be fine, but we can't do like tree A or tree B because those are predefined. So we're going to do tree object, something like this, tree object definitions. Okay, we're going to do constant tree 1 and give it a number, and constant tree 2, give it a number, and then constant tree 3, give it a number. Oops. constant tree 4 and give that a number as well. Actually, I think I'm going to go up to 5 here because I want to put the bushes at 2/3 the density that they normally are. And I want to put the pine trees at 1/2 the normal density. So, there we go. Let's go to, where's our definitive constants? Let's pull that up for reference. Just bring up the definitive constants list here. Although actually we should probably just pull up Advanced Genie Editor since it works and we have that. So we want pine forest. Let's try searching for that. Well, maybe snow pine. There we go, 413. So tree 1 is going to be 413. I don't think we... Yeah. We'll just say this is... Nah! We'll leave it alone. It's just one more thing I gotta keep track of and change later. And then the snowy African bush, ABS is African bush snow. I believe that's 1054. So we will define that thusly for now. Okay. So we come back to our objects generation, placing tree 1 and tree 2, we're placing it on Oasis Forest Terrain. They must be spaced 4 tiles away from themselves, but not necessarily each other. And the rest of that looks good for now. So let's generate this as is. Okay. We'll let that run. You'll see that when it runs, it automatically closes these ODS files, which is somewhat annoying. I remember implementing that a long time ago, and I can't figure out how to unimplement it. Maybe Octave was changed to do that automatically, that they, at the same time, thought it would be good. I'm like searching for the stuff that does that, and I just can't find it. But it's a lot of code. Objects Autoscribe is, you know, over 1,000 lines of code. So now we can check the script file, and we should see that we've got tree 1 and tree 2 now, and it has the basic information that we wanted. So let us generate and see what happens. Note that we have not used, really, these flags very much. But you can also see that these forests go all the way out to the edge, and they take up the space that we probably wanted our bushes to take up, right? We want to transition from bigger trees that are closer to the large water source, and we want it to transition to smaller trees as water becomes less and less available, because this is a desert. So in cases where we have 2 trees next to each other, like here, this is tree 1 and tree 2 right next to each other. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to decrease this spacing, and that will increase the number of trees that we have. That is the first step. And then we can also start considering actor areas for these trees. so that we can maybe concentrate them closer to different areas of interest. Let us take a look and see how it fares on Giant. Don't know that we need to adjust it to 8 players, but let's just see. Okay. Yeah, it does about the same on Giant. Approximately the same forest tree density. Okay, good. Good stuff. So let us open our spreadsheet up, and we will decrease this from 4. Let's try decreasing it to 2. Save, run, and see what we got, because we really do want it to be quite tight, but I don't want to overdo it. We want it to be very thick closest to these flags, and that's sort of the first stage that we're working on here. Okay, so it's all set. So you can see that this forest is indeed much denser. But it's probably still not quite the density that I want. So we will decrease it down to 1. It is probably too dense out here. But that is okay. We will deal with that later. The big thing is to get it to have the density that we're looking for right here, closest to these flags. And actually, well, this density is quite good, but let's try 1. Let's experiment a little bit. Because we got to remember, it's not really possible to overpower it, I don't think, too much, because it still has to be placed on these oasis forest terrains. All right, should be done now. Yep, there we go. Yeah, I like that. I like that better. Sort of quite tight. Okay, so maybe a little bit dense for this particular biome, but that's okay, because I have a plan. You see? Let's come back and open this up again. So now we are going to do a couple of things. Got tree 1 and tree 2. And we are going to say that these trees well, first of all, I think that we're going to define tree 2 as we're going to define it as an empty placeholder. So this area is a little bit clearer. But I also kind of don't want to. You know, so maybe we just suppress. Yeah, well let's see how we can limit the range first of all. So we will delete that number so that it's not spawning the tree 2. And I think we're going to get rid of this temp min distance group placement of 1. So it really is filling up all of the oasis forest. But we're going to specify that it has to be within a certain distance of this object here. So let me see if I can find, aha, here we go, some text join command. Paste that, and we're going to place it within an actor area. Let's clear out these highlighted cells so we don't get confused later. And we are going to specify that we want this to be placed within maybe 8. No, that's probably too much. Maybe within 6. Scaling factor 1. So place these tree 1s within 6 tiles of these placeholders that are on the outer cap, and we will save that. And let's run it and let's see what happens. So it should be that all of these forests, or all of these trees rather, are just placed close to the cap. Just close to the lake, because that's where the cap is and that's where the placeholders are. Okay, it's all set. So what do you guys think? Think that that's fair? It's basically filling up all of the forest terrain that's next to this lake with some dense pine forest trees. And it doesn't have to be on elevation 1 because it's within 6. We could probably expand it slightly. I think we should expand it slightly. Maybe we do within 8. But the big thing is that we also need to check how does it behave on tiny. Tiny with two players. Yeah, it's a similar situation. I think it actually might need it a little bit more. So we will bump that up to 8. We'll keep this same seed, and we will bump that up to 8 and see how we do. We don't want to make these actor areas too large or have excessive numbers of them, because it will lag the game generating this map. Okay. So let's just get that, actually, before we move on to the next step. We'll just confirm that we're happy with this. I don't like to, you know, do too much at once. Even though it's faster and even though I've got a pretty good idea of what I'm doing, I don't want to make a mistake, and I don't want to have multiple variables keeping people guessing about what the problem could be. In this case, if it doesn't look right, I know exactly what I changed, so we can just go in and adapt. So it's written to the file. Yeah, that's better. That is much better. And this is essentially going to be the density of stuff. Even in the jungle maps and even in the very densely packed maps, this is going to be how thick all that stuff is next to each other. So this is good. I like that. Let's go up to large to make sure it's not out of control. I'm not even going to bother with the player count because it doesn't matter. Now this looks a little barren here. You know, I think we're kind of really struggling with using this outer cap. Some of it comes out here, but some of it is, you know, some of it is right here in the center. You know what? Let's try a different terrain. Let's try our legitimate beach terrain. Whatever we ended up using for beaches. I think this outer cap thing is really struggling because it's kind of random. But we should have beaches either way. So we got real beach here. And then we have secondary real beach. So let's try creating these on real beaches and secondary real beaches. Real beach and SRB. We might still have to scale this. We'll see. But let's target real beach. And if we're targeting real beach, let's space them 2 instead of 4. And the terrain is going to be real beach. And we're going to place them within 6 of that. And we'll give that a try. And we'll see. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of interruption, but the secondary beach should be pretty regular. It tries to uniformly distribute the terrains. And it certainly shouldn't create more than 6 tile gaps. Writing to file. Okay, good. So now all these flags that you see should be lined up along the coast. And we will confirm that to be the case. What? Interesting. So in this case, it wants to put, maybe it's putting this icy beach as a sort of a default when you put the ice on the water. I'm not really sure. But this is much more consistent in terms of the forest distribution. 6 is just about the right number. Maybe we bump it up just a little bit more. Maybe we put it back at 8, who knows. But you can see we've got this line of trees here. That should go away when we start layering the additional trees in. But it's somewhat disappointing that we've got, I guess we could use whatever this solid is. It's really, it's kind of a trade-off between the number of these but a smaller distance versus a lower number of flags fit in here, but over a larger distance. I think we're going to leave it as is for now. So let's add some more trees. So this next set of trees, we're going to place them on our oasis forest, but they're going to be placed at larger spacings. And I'm just thinking here how we want to do this. Do we want to say that they're within a certain radius of this, but that radius is larger? Or do we want to say that they have to avoid this outlander terrain by a certain distance? I say that we place within a larger distance of these. So let's come back and bring up our spreadsheet again. So it looks like we want to place a tree 2, but I think we're perfectly content with tree 1. So we will copy this and we will paste this here, but we will have a tree 2 mixed in. And we'll bring that down. We'll copy these details. Actually, we'll copy these details to both. So we're having these next two, which are kind of like the layer of the trees. Actually, you know what? We are using green to indicate trees, so we might go in and highlight this later. And we will place them within 12. 12 and 12. And we will give them a temp min distance group placement of 2 and 2. And we will specify this as tree. Maybe we actually give them temp min distance group placement of, well, let's give them 3. Tree 1, tree 1, tree 1. Okay, so this is going to be tree 2. Copy that and we'll paste this down here. Tree 2. There we go. And this will be tree 3. So tree 2 is going to be our African bush, and tree 3 is going to be the void. And they all have to be placed within 12 of those flags in the center, or at least some of the flags in the center. Let's save that. See exactly what we're doing for trees. All right, tree 1, tree 2. So we'll do tree 2 as the 1054. And tree 3 is going to be 647, the invisible placeholder. So we could potentially have a greater density, but we give that up. Okay, and we just put the invisible placeholder there. So we got that saved. Let's run this again. I'm going to also use this opportunity to bring up Advanced Genie Editor. There you go. It is a very useful scripting tool. It's important that it works on your machine. It allows you to look up all the different constants for all these different objects. Okay, there we are. So you could type in tree, and it would tell you all the different trees. It's got a powerful search function, and all their properties too. Okay, let's generate that and see what other trees spawn out here. We should get some bushes, we should get some pine trees, so it should be pretty good. So we got some pine trees. We did not appear to get any bushes, so something must be wrong. Let's take a look. Why did our bushes fail to spawn out there? Hey, Cookie Pirate, welcome. So, tree 2. Temp min distance group placement of 3. It needs to spawn within 12 tiles of whatever is in row 2, which are our on-grid placeholders. And that's it. So that looks pretty reasonable. Did we not define tree 2 properly? Tree 2 is defined as 1054. So, aha! Here's why. We have previously in our script, we have previously said that the African bush snow spawns on a different terrain type and cannot spawn on this one. That is why it's not spawning. So, we can use second object to put tree 2 in its proper location. So we're just going to use on grid. We're just going to define that there. And then we'll put tree 2 as a second object so that it can ignore the terrain requirements. Tree 3 is our invisible object, and we do not want that to spawn. We want that to be there so that we can increase the tree density later on potentially other versions, other biomes of the map. Okay, so that should resolve that issue. So now, let's run it again, and we should confirm that we get the bushes out there. Writing to file. Okay, now let's get the bushes. So if you do it this way, you can't use resource delta to change the amount of wood in the bushes, but that's fine because we'll use effect amount. And you can see that the bushes are underneath each of these flags. Because technically the flags are being placed first and the bushes are just kind of there hanging out. Although the flags should not be spawning on these other pine trees. So we might need to tell them to avoid their actor area by 1. Which is fine, because apparently the flags have no problem spawning on top of these other pine trees, like right here. So we will do that. We will introduce the possibility of randomness, and I actually think that this is still not quite concentrated enough. Question about neutral Gaia units. Is it possible to set them to be convertible once and then have their allegiance fixed? Oh yes, that is how they work. That is the default. for convertible neutral Gaia units. Only artifact class buildings can be converted multiple times by different players. But if you convert a Gaia unit, unless it's a sheep or something, or an artifact class, it is yours for the rest of the game. Like if you're running around and you convert a Gaia skirmisher or a Gaia knight that you find on your map, it'll be yours for the rest of the game. But generally that sort of thing is frowned upon because that is regarded as a large power swing for something that is random scouting. Monument, Rock Church, and Torch A, I believe. Okay, so let me go back to our spreadsheet. So this is not supposed to be spawning on top of tree 1. So we will tell it to avoid tree 1 by 0, I think. That could work. Let's see. So this will have it avoid whatever is in row 8. Have it avoid by 0. So I believe that will do the trick. And let us also decrease this temp min distance group placement to 2. See if that generates a little bit more density. You were asking for an idea I had, but you weren't sure if it was viable. Well, hopefully your idea is viable. Okay. We always want people to be able to make their dreams come true. Okay. So we should no longer get the bushes spawning on top of the trees anymore. But let's see. The density is less out here. Oh, you know, the other thing is that these are going to, now that I'm thinking about it, they are actually going to spawn closer because we never told them to really respect these other pine trees here. Yes, that is a problem. We got two trees on top of each other. That simply will not do. But I think that this is a solvable problem. We'll just have them avoid these flags by the same distance. This beach by the same distance. All right. So and I think we're also going to decrease the avoidance by a little bit more. Okay. Okay, so we go down to 1. And we need to program these to also avoid this. So we'll copy this, paste that there. And this is going to avoid whatever's in 7. No. Whatever's in 6. Although we actually could have them. This would be smaller radii. So this would be better. So yeah, let's have them avoid. Although, if they are avoiding those trees, then there's going to be an awkward gap in between the two. So no, we can't do it that way. It has to be A6, which is unfortunate. And we will have them avoid by 6. Oops. Because that's what these other ones are placed within. So they will avoid by 6. And let's do that again. So we have A6. And we'll have that avoid by 6, 0. We gotta have the space there now. So both of these are avoiding, and we should do the same for this last one. Although this tree 3 here does not have a second object associated with it because we assume that it can be placed properly. You know, honestly, for good measure, we really should do all of these as second objects. Just to make sure that they can all be placed, because we can't really predict. So let's put that there. Actually, let's copy this first, and we'll put this here. And we'll copy that, and we'll put that there. And then we'll have this avoid both of these by 0. So this will avoid this, F4, and then comma, and then it will also avoid that, F4, 2, 5, and this is actually, we want this to be 6. No. We need 8 and 9. Here we are. Two, 4, and 5. Okay, 6, 0, and 0. Okay, yes, that should be good. So we can at least, with these on-grid placeholders, we can at least see where the tree would have been. They're spaced 1 from each other, so let's give this a run. The neighbor is pounding on something. Sounds like he's an axe against a wedge. Maybe he's splitting firewood. Writing to file. So it's done. Okay. Tell him to build a new lumber camp. Yeah, I know. Let's see. We have a bunch of these flags in here. What do you guys think? Probably look a lot better without the flags. I don't think it takes too long to generate this. Change around the seeds. The good news is that we're not overpopulating the center anymore. Okay. Well, I guess we just keep going. Set the HP of this flag A equal to 0, or we can just change it over to 278 so it's invisible. It doesn't really matter. 278 is technically not invisible, but it's less visible. Okay, we'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that, and we will keep. We will revert back to what we have here. The dead fish trap, whose visuals we're removing. Okay, so the next one. It's tree 1, tree 2, tree 3. We're going to copy this over here, paste that. We're going to do this as on grid. I'm not sure why I didn't do that earlier. So these are all placed as second objects, and it doesn't matter, what we ended up doing to clear the trees prior to object generation. Now we're putting them back. It's tree 1 here. We will copy that, and we will actually paste that here as well. Let's try this on grid. This should all work out quite nicely. This tree 1 is already being placed within its own space, so we don't have to worry about these impinging upon it. So there's no need for avoidances there. So we're using 3 trees essentially. Got this spacing of 1. Really want to investigate whether or not we want to do that. It's designed so that there will always be passageways between the forests to get in here. So it's really a matter of deciding what do we want the density of our forest to be in sort of this ring up here, this layer. And right now we have it at 2/3 density for the desert. I guess that's a good 2/3 density. Actually, it's probably maybe less than that. We got 3 of them in there, and yeah, we need that spacing of 1, because if we don't have it, then all of these first trees will just fill in all of the spaces, and there won't be anything left for the bushes. So I guess we're being too hard on ourselves in that regard. It looks a little thin in some spots. Well, remember that this is a desert. And the number of trees is not important, because we are going to use effect amount to change the amount of wood in each tree so that it is essentially the same regardless. So we're going to do some more here. And we're going to have maybe 3/4 density for the next one. Insert rows above. So we're going to have 1 tree 3, 2 tree 2s, and 1 tree 1. So it's going to be half bushes, 1/4 pine forest, and it's going to be Yeah, it's going to be 1/4 empty. This one we're going to put in maybe a spacing of 8, maybe 4. This is the next. This is sort of the next layer. These are all going to be spaced at 1s now, and the place in and avoidance is going to bump up. I think we're going to come out another 6, essentially. So we'll do 18. And we're going to copy this over, paste that there. This is going to bump up to 12. We're building this complexity in. I hope that these actor areas can all handle it. I think they should be able to. Okay, but instead of whatever's in 2, is it going to avoid whatever's above it? 7. 7 and 8. And this is going to go 7, 8, and 9. Okay. So they can't spawn on top of each other because of that spacing. They have to be between 12 and 18 tiles from the nearest beach. You know what we could do, actually, to improve the efficiency of this? We could make another placeholder. You know what? Let's keep on grid as 600 for now. Because I want to test this. I have this idea. Because all of these other objects here are kind of wasting its time. You know, they're just additional objects that these trees have to reference when they're being placed in order to avoid. So we should try to lean that out if possible. And I think we can do that by creating some highly spaced placeholders on this island and then telling these flags to avoid those placeholders. So let's give that a try. Come up here and we will insert this row and we'll delete all of that. This is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So fortunately, we've set up our spreadsheet in a way that all of these numbers update automatically. And we're gonna have let's say flag B. We're just gonna test this with the flag B. We'll change it over to on grid later if we need to. And this is on Real Beach, but we're gonna copy a lot of these parameters here. We're just gonna change the terrain. Actually, we don't want to copy everything. We're just gonna copy this. Save it. So what terrain should we have it be placed on? Well, let's see what our options are. We could do the inner cap. We could do the outer cap. I think we have to do the inner cap. So we're going to do terrain to place on inner cap. We're going to have these be spaced maybe 4 apart from each other. And then we're going to have whatever's here avoid this by 5. So we'll copy the format. We'll have it avoid whatever's in row 2. Oops. a 6 by 5. The scaling will be 1. Okay. So we will give that a shot. Okay, it's all set. We'll keep this seed. We'll see what these flags do. So these flags are spawned. I don't see any flag A's here. Oh, you know what? It's because we are already defined. We need to revert this real quick just to test it. We have on grid defined as 600, but we defined it as 278 before. So there we are. We have greater forest density up this way. We can put wolves out here, or actually snow leopards could actually be appropriate. The occasional pine tree, as you can see, but it starts to transition into bushes, which is what we want. But it definitely does look thin, but this is good. I really think that it reflects the nature of this biome, which is desert. Yep, I think it looks good. Let's see if we can narrow that down a little bit, but we have to be careful because on the tiny map sizes, there isn't going to be as much space there. Although we probably still could increase that a bit. Or we could change the scaling so that it increases with larger map sizes. That could be the new trick that we use. The tiny map did generate much faster than the large. I don't think we can get away with increasing this too much. All right, let's keep this seed. And we can bump this distance up to 5, which allows us to bump this distance up to 6. Or rather, so much that we're bumping this distance up to 6, and then that allows our spacing to be bumped up to 5. This number over here can never be less than this number, and it should not be equal to it either. Otherwise, these could take advantage of the gaps between these. And then we will mess with this scaling factor right here to allow this distance to increase for the largest of map sizes. But first we have to get the tiny size right. And we're gonna inch it upward here. Okay, it's written. Keeping this seed. Big thing is to ensure that these placeholders are still spawning properly. Yeah, that's better. I think we could afford a little bit more. And I think we're going to change these to flag Bs or flag C just so I can see it a little bit better. So I can know which ones are trees and which ones are not. So let me come back over here. So we will allow that, and we're just gonna say flag C here, and we're gonna bump this spacing up to 6, and then that means we're gonna get to bump this up to 7. We'll give that a try. Okay. So we're still getting these to spawn properly. There's a few more of them out near the edges. I don't think it's hurting anything. Let's do a few more random generations and just see. We never want there to be a case where these flag Cs fail to spawn. Because if they fail to spawn, then the trees will not spawn properly. I think this is just about the most conservative case that we can have. These are a little far apart here, but I think it'll still be okay because we're talking about 6 versus 6, so that should be all right because the first distance is 6, if I recall. There might be a flag in here that I can't see that's blocked by that tree. No, I just choose to so that I can see what's going on more effectively. Otherwise, I would have a hard time telling what was what. So at the end, and probably even before then, you can be guaranteed that I will go through and change these to the invisible placeholder that I want. Because I don't want these flags visible to the players as the game unfolds. But it can be useful to see them now to ensure that I'm able to use the actor areas to maximum efficiency. So now we're starting to kind of get closer to the player town centers. And it seems that these have not really encroached on the player town centers. We can do a few more random generations because the actor areas that they are within limit their ability to be close to player town centers. Oh no, you know what? The reason that they're not closer to player town centers is because this oasis terrain is inherently avoiding of player town centers. Yes. Okay, excellent. I think that that is too much. See how it's sort of caving in here? That's because this distance is not adequately covered. These are spaced too far apart, or they're not quite reliably spawning the way that we wish. So we will go in and relax that a bit. These are spaced at intervals of 2. I suppose that we could space them at greater intervals of 4, but we will relax this to 6, and we will relax this to 5. Okay. We'll keep this seed, and we'll confirm that this has made an improvement. So we don't want this carving into our oasis. We will also put reeds here next to the ice when we have the chance. But those reeds will be placed as objects that are lameable. They're not going to be placed on this oasis forest terrain. Actually, we might even be able to place these flags. Instead of these being flags, we could place these as the reeds. That could work pretty effectively, and we could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Excellent. Let's hit generate and see if we've improved. Specifically over here, you can see that we now have a little bit more consistent flag generation. These have been pushed back some. It's still not great. No, flags are not artifacts, I don't believe. In Advanced Genie Editor, you can actually go up and look to see what class something is. So let's go and check that now. So if we check flag A, its class is number 30. It is the flag class. But if we went to Monument, you can see that Monument is class 1, which is artifact class. If we looked at Rock Church, we can also see that the Rock Church is artifact class. And if we look at Torch, we can see that Torch A is terrain class, but Torch A convertible, which is object 854, is artifact class. And I guess Torch B convertible is also artifact class. So that's how you can tell. We will decrease the spacing between these flag C's, and I think we'll make them reeds, and we'll pretty much call it good with that, and then we'll just adjust their scaling actually. So I think we're going to make their spacing 3. We are not going to scale their spacing. We're going to do tree reed, and we're going to set that equal to 1050. And I'm pretty sure that there is no generation of the map that isn't going to have these reeds on it. So we can keep that defined here in the objects. But who would have thought it would all be built around the tree reeds? Oh no! Well, that's not right. Oops. Now we have these sandstone formations. Game just crashed. I wonder if that has anything to do with it. Okay. Well, let's relaunch the game first of all. Let's go back into our spreadsheet. Lake Petra. Exactly. It's going to be on the beach terrain anyway. Let's just make sure that they can spawn properly. I don't think it's 1050. I could be wrong. Do on-grid 600. Delete that from there. And let's go to the Advanced Genie editor and look up read. It's 1350, not 1050. Okay. 1350. I'm pretty sure that we can define that there. We can set these to be convertible, that's fine. Okay, we're back into the game. So before we load that up, let's update the map script. See if there's anything else that we want to change. No, I don't think so. We'll just get that right. We are ready to generate as soon as this is updated. There we go. Yeah, there's some reeds in the middle of the water here, but that's fine. They are technically on beach terrain. I think they're still avoiding these flags by too much. This one failed to spawn something here. I don't know how huge of a deal it is. Yeah, I guess it's fine. I think it's fine. So now the big thing is that when we go to a giant map size, and we'll generate it with 8 players here, we're going to have excessive numbers of these reads. So we'll keep this seed number. Oh, yikes. This island is We might even have to go back and revisit the terrain generation here. It seems like this island should be capable of continuing, like it's just on the lower half. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but at the very least we can scale this up for giant size. This is apparently a bunch of beach terrain here, so we can at least get rid of some of the icy reeds out here. So we'll keep this seed, and I believe that the distance is doubled on the giant size if we put 2 there. So let us adjust that scaling factor and see what happens. It's been a while since I programmed it, so I don't remember 100%, but I'm pretty sure that that is the case. So the spacing of 3 is good. So they avoid by 6, but we're going to set the scaling factor to 2. And this will set up a situation where this radius will change depending on map size. So we come in here and where is it? Tree read. So it is avoiding actor area 1. This actor area radius now is going to, I think change for this flag B, depending on the map. So this is what we need to pay attention to right here. So we've got that scaling going on now. So let's run it and confirm that that updates properly. So let's check our, yep, look at that. Our script file scales this radius up. It doubles it on the largest of map sizes. Excellent. So if, else if, else if, else if, else if, else if, else, and then end if. Very good. So when we keep this seed and we hit generate, these reads should be much more distant from these flags. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, the only big problem is that this island, which is what these flags spawn on, it doesn't seem to want to travel the full length of the lake. So therefore there is this kind of patch on the top and on the bottom in this case where there's extra reeds. But it's not the end of the world. It's not a big deal. I mean, you could, this is a kind of a shallow lake. It's more like a pond. It's got some reeds growing in small islands. This is kind of a marshier area. And this is largely walkable in here. Where's my boyar? These are shallows. So you could make the argument that you could have occasional reeds popping up out of the shallows. It's just for this particular biome, this is what we ended up with. So I think it's okay. So now we've got those reeds someplace where we are happy with them. We can continue with this out here. Yeah, so I think we just want the 3 different types of trees here. We got the pine trees, the African bushes, and then empty placeholders. And for this next layer, we have to think about what's most programmatically efficient. We could reference these reeds again, but I think this is basically our last layer. So we could essentially have no pine trees out here. Maybe the occasional pine tree. Maybe there's one every 16 tiles or something. But at this point, it's mostly just going to be bushes. And we don't really have to specify that those bushes avoid these reeds. We can just say avoid existing pine trees. All this other stuff, just avoid this by 1 or something. And it should be sufficient. I don't think we'll have to reference all of this stuff in the center. Yeah, the island is a bit truncated, but it's sort of truncated at either end. It's kind of it's a fair truncation. You can walk to the relics anyway, so it should be fine. I tell you, this is going to be the best Age of Empires map anybody has ever made, ever. Very excited. Okay, let's get back to work. So we've essentially we kind of have our different layers. Oh, we should specify this too. I don't think it does anything, but I like to do it for good measure. We can give these alternating colors. So this is sort of our first one here. And we will give this one the lighter green color, maybe. Something like that. And then we had, what was it? This was actually the next one. These are the closest. So we give it a lighter green color than that. And then we had these 3. So we'll give that a darker green color. And then we had we can't seem to give them the same color, can we? I don't want anything too crazy. And we have these 3, which are going to give the lighter green color there. Okay. This is going to help us distinguish between the different groups, what's doing what. And at a first glance, we can quickly identify which trees belong to which layer, essentially. So we're going to try to get away with not referencing these tree reeds because the distance is growing. We don't want it to be too computationally intensive. Let's think about proportions here. We could have maybe a pine tree every, I don't know, pine tree every 16 tiles, and then the rest 2/3 are bushes, and the remaining 1/4, sorry, not 2/3, the remaining half of it are bushes, and the remaining quarter. Well, it's not exactly broken down like this. Let's do 5. Let's do 5, I think. 5 is a good number. Challenge accepted. All right, that's the spirit. Starting there. Don't give up on me now, Octave. Ah, come on. So we're going to insert rows above. we're going to try copying this again. And pasting it there. So we're going to have 2 tree 3s. And these 5 we're going to change to the darker color. And we're going to 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. They'll be placed on Oasis Forest. We will start this off at like 16. We're going to have these be placed at maybe 2, 2, 2, and 2. And there's not really, well, we do not want to reference 3. We do not want to have them placed within anything. That we do know. Probably don't want to reference 3. However, we do need to reference all other trees. We're going to have it avoid by 0. So we will copy this, paste it here. We're going to have to change the color later. And we're basically going to say every other tree that's ever been placed, make sure that you don't place on top of it. Put 0 there. And we'll copy this, paste that down there. We'll copy this and we'll paste that down this way. We'll change the colors back. Next one, 16. This one goes up to 17. This one goes up to 18. And this one goes up to 19. All right. Let's see what happens. If this works, this will conclude our tree generation. Putting trees on this map. I like it. And there's occasional pine trees out here. I wish the pine trees did avoid this. And we can somewhat achieve that if we want. Like this pine tree is right at the edge here. Just kind of annoying. But it's good. It really gives us the desert feel, like the scarcity of wood on this desert. So maybe bushes around this cold watering hole, but not much else. Interesting, though, that these trees are almost enclosing this player. Almost like we need the Oasis terrain to avoid player starting areas by a little bit more. I think that should be programmed in. But the player starts need a little bit of work anyway. I think we need to pull them in toward the Oasis. Make them a bit closer. Let's introduce some more randomness. Let's take a look at different seed numbers. Yeah, like look at this random ass tree out here. Come on. Of all the places you could spawn, it just has to spawn at the edge. Well, you know, I'll tell you what, actually. Maybe we can have loner bushes out here. Loner stragglers. And then we can tell these trees to avoid those loner stragglers. I think that's actually probably going to be the best way. Yeah, let's do that. And then I think we'll basically be done. So we'll keep this seed, but we'll essentially be done with the trees, the forests on this map. We got the forests how we want them. They're thinner for the desert varieties, which is okay. We will adjust the amount of wood in each of these trees to compensate for the amount. Somewhat. Okay, excellent. So we'll come out here and oops, we'll launch this. And we have these on-grids being defined as number 600. Let us do one more thing here. We've got a flag B up here. Let's I guess we can insert it right here. It means all of this will be outdated, which is fine. 5, etc. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. If these aren't numbered properly, then it will cause actor area issues. And we're going to have this be Outland Straggler. And this is going to be equal to, yeah, well, this is our first object. We don't need to place this as a second object. The terrain that it will be placed on is the base terrain. We do not care about the mask because we're going to have enough of these to where, who cares, you know, if it's, who cares if one side has 58 and the other side has 38. You know, nobody's going to be counting. They're going to care about the gold. So we don't need a second object because we weren't forbidding it on this terrain already. These are straggler trees. Their first constant ID is going to be whatever the African bush was. The African bush being 1054. So the constant ID of 1054. And these are going to be neutral Gaia convertible. copy a lot of this data actually. Neutral Gaia convertible. We're going to place them on the base train. We're going to give them a temp min distance group placement of 12, I think. It's going to be something quite large. And some of these aren't even going to have... Actually, we're not going to define the outland straggler here because some maps won't even have them. We could define multiple outland stragglers, actually. So different maps could have different densities of outland stragglers. But we'll just do one for now. Let's bump that up even further, I think 16. And we will have that be good. So outland straggler is technically, wait a second. There's no reason it has to go before this flag B here. So we're going to insert rows below. And we're going to set this equal to 3 and this equal to 2. And we're just going to take this and paste this in here. So that we can keep all of our trees together if possible. Which we're going to try. And we're going to highlight this with the lighter color. So this is an outland straggler. It's going to be placed on the base train. They're going to be spaced 16 apart. This is one of those cases where we can't really tell these trees to avoid the outland straggler by too much, but we're going to try. These are also placed 16 apart. And the big disadvantage is that this is going to get kind of messy. But we have to do it. And so we're going to tell it to avoid this outland straggler. So it's also going to avoid the outland straggler. So we have, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 things total here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, yes, 10. So the first one is going to be that large distance of 17. And then the rest are going to be 9 zeros. Okay. So now the pine trees will not be too close to the outland straggler. I'm thinking that if they're avoiding by 17, there's still going to be sufficient distance for them to be like closer to in here. But we'll see. Let me just double check this. Make sure that there are no obvious flaws or errors. Okay, good. The only problem is that we need to define the outland straggler. Okay, so we're going to do that here. Outland straggler. That's 1054. Okay. So let's write that data to our script file. We'll make sure we can coax those outland stragglers. Well, they're not really going to need coaxing because they're among the first objects placed, but we want those pine trees to avoid the edge of the oasis. But we still want them to be randomly sprinkled in there. Because that's what pine trees do. They're random, but they prefer to be random near water. So we're going to try to get that bias. So we're keeping this seed. It's all done running. Let's hit generate and see what happened. So we're right here in between orange and purple. We can see that the pine tree is no longer there. Do we have the outland stragglers? No, we do not. Do we have pine trees anywhere in here? Not really. I was hoping that we'd get like a pine tree. Oh, here's one. So we just can't see the outland stragglers. Why not? Why not? So it looks like these pine trees are, they do have some avoidance, but I don't know that it's causation here. Let's take a look. Could have just been that since the script changed, it just did something different. Outland straggler. So outland straggler is defined as 1054. And tree 2 is also defined as 1054. Let's see if it's placing outland straggler properly. The terrain to place on is the BT, base terrain. Is that right? That is the only thing. I mean, BT is base terrain, it's 14. And 14 is what? It should be that desert stuff, right? AoE2 terrains. Let's bring that up. Yep, it's the desert. Sandy, lightly colored. It's not defined here, but it doesn't need to be. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's outland straggler. Outland straggler. Well, let's move that over into second object. We'll put on grid up here. And we'll delete this and we'll set this to 600 and we'll try that again. Maybe there is some issue where you can't place straggler trees on the desert. But that doesn't really make sense because we've seen Arabia as a desert terrain have straggler trees. So I don't really know what would cause that. But this will at least tell us if we're getting the flags there, I suppose. Neutral Gaia convertible, that very large distance in between them. Okay. It's thinking. Writing to file. Excellent. So it's done. So we'll keep the seed and see what we get now. Oh, another crash. Don't send. Don't send. I wonder if it could have something to do with the terrain mask as well. For instance, that terrain is masked, but that really shouldn't matter because it's still the base terrain fundamentally. Aha! There we go. We got it. They are spawning out here. Good. So we got random bushes sometimes being out here. So I think maybe it was a primary object problem. It is kind of insane how often it crashes. Oh, we should tell these to avoid the player town centers by a fair amount, probably 30 tiles. But it's doing a good job of keeping these pine trees from getting too close. We could even, honestly, we could even probably scale that, but it doesn't matter so much for this one. Let's take a look at the larger map size. Large map, 8 players. Hit generate. Yep, still got these occasional bushes out here. And this is an example of a pine tree that is avoiding these neutral objects. There aren't too many of them. But in general, the pine trees don't really like to spawn anymore. They might spawn like right here or something, which is fine. And right here. I think we are going to introduce a greater avoidance to player starting areas for this forest terrain. And we're also going to put lions over here, or predators, to prevent people from completely walling off their side. You might be able to wall to the edge of the map, you might be able to wall off your town, but I would like to prevent people from walling off this entirely, at least not without investment. This one is harder to wall. There's all kinds of little gaps and spaces too. This is a very aggressive map. Okay. So we need to bake in avoidance to town centers. Which is why we always put the town center first. Maybe A5. These are all neutral objects, and we don't want them too close to the player town centers. Distance of 24, I'm going to say. 24 will be sufficient. What is this? Oh, we don't want that. That would be quite toxic. It would have a hard time dealing with that. So this we're going to change to on grid. I'm going to get rid of that. Save that. Got 17 different object placement schemes. We will redefine this up here to remove our on-grid placeholder. And we'll run it. And I think we should be good for the forests after this. We could do something maybe with the scaling. Have a sort of negative scaling in with these stragglers in the outlands, so that the bigger the map, the smaller the avoidance. But nah, it's fine. Keep the seed. These flags should all disappear. I'm just left with the trees, and that looks a lot better. Remember that this is pretty scant because this is the desert biome. So these bushes are not going to be as thick. You got a pine tree, a couple pine trees there, but in general, it's not as thick. We can increase this avoidance to player starting areas. I think we should do that as well. So I don't want the players to kind of be enclosed. I don't want them to be enclosed. Get these stragglers out here. We'll put golds out here eventually. It's kind of what this area is all about. Players get their own player assigned gold as well. So that is in terrain generation. Set avoid player start areas, and maybe we tell them to avoid by 18. Yeah, that's better. And we'll still put stragglers in here. And these stragglers will be snowy bushes, but we're not going to do that right now. I think I'm going to end the video right now because there is something very delicious smelling downstairs, and I want to go and eat it. So we'll go and we'll have dinner. I might do this again. Might continue with the objects generation. The next step is going to be to get these mountains up here. Those features. This is, it's purely cosmetic, but it's important for a map to look good. So I'd like to get those mountains up here. That's going to be the next step in objects generation. And I will stream that, but I'm not going to do it now because that'll probably take an hour or two, similar to this. But I am proud of the progress. This is good progress today. Do have a couple of other things going on. Hey, Panda Bear, welcome. This is Shimmerpool. This is based off of my map Karga. So let me, yeah, that'll be a good thing to close with actually. So we're continuing to build in the different features, you know, the different forests and the ridges on the outside, and there's going to be gold in the desert. And right now you're seeing a frozen version of it. But let me just show you some pictures from the original Karga so that you guys can get excited. Well, as excited as anybody can get watching a boring random map scripting stream. That's okay though. Let's see if I can find Karga here. Archive. Yeah, here we go. So this is, I made two skins of it. The first was desert. The second one, this is for the savannah. And this was redone for Nilly's Apartment Cup to sort of give you a reference of what it looked like for. And this is a player starting condition, savannah. You could potentially start in the corner on a nomad start, and then you could slip through these rocks and go to the center and build your town. This was the desert version on a larger map size. The savannah, there's all kinds of lions in here guarding these forest passages. This is the desert version, an oasis. This is an old map. This was developed before you had ever heard of Age of Empires, maybe. This was made in 2020, I think, late 2020 originally. It's a picture of the brown watering hole in the African version, and the desert version, one of the player town centers with a kind of a crazy start there on the hill. And then all kinds of birds looking at these relics that are in the middle of the lake, because why not? It's fun stuff. So that's the vision for it, but imagine all of this beauty in all the different biomes, many different biomes. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll continue this later or another time. Depends on who else is streaming from the guild this afternoon, as well as how Civ goes, assuming that we still have Civ and everything. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you later.